This is the daily COVID-19 show with Dr. Griggs and Dr. Dery. My name is Dr. Dery, as this graphic will show you. Too bad I can't do it all at one time. And that's Dr. Griggs. I'm an infectious disease doctor. Dr. Griggs is a community medicine expert. We do the show every day from 4 o'clock until we run out of material, which is usually around 5. And or Dr. Griggs and I can't stop. We stop the show when we realize that we can't listen to each other anymore. Or we stop. I typically stop the show when I realize all Dr. Griggs is doing is just saying what I'm saying. Hold on. Hang on. Look at this.
Folks. See, this is proof of why you don't give old people new toys. This is what happens when the older generation gets a new toy. Now I got to hear about the new job, week and a half,
dude. How?
And it's going to be absolutely inappropriate. So I'd like to say, hey Laverne, hey PC, hey Patrick. How about that, old guy? Now what? Fucker, hello, fucker. Drop the mic on that. See out there, he's starting. He's starting. Yeah, he wrong. He wrong and he old.
Hey,
that was pretty dope, by the way. So let's get started.
Hold on. Graham added that today, and I saw it, and as soon as I made the joke, I was like, "Oh, go to the mic drop, go to the mic drop."
You see what I'm telling you, folks? Y'all see what I put up with? You see this? This is every day, all day.
Hey,
every day, all day.
Tell
Can we get to the slide, man?
No. Tell them to get to the slides. Tell us what you talked about today on Fox this morning.
What did we talk about this morning? That was this morning? What we talked about was the CDC. We talked about, I'm telling y'all, pricks, I'm telling you, man. We talked about antibody testing.
Yes.
And how up to 50% of the testing that's done could be wrong. The specificity, the sensitivity, all these are epidemiological terms that we use in public health that have to deal with biostats, that have to do with accuracy of testing could be off because the technology isn't advanced enough, nor is the amount of information that we know about antibodies as it relates to this virus. We do know that antibody responses are mounted, but we just don't know how. And more importantly, and specifically, Doc, it came up that we don't know whether we're talking about neutralizing antibodies, which are antibodies that come out to actually neutralize and level out the virus and stop it, or the protective antibodies that stick around. We're not sure which is which and or how long it stays around. And until then, we haven't had a conversation about any type of policy.
Right. No. It's adaptive immunity, so it's neutralizing antibodies. So, but my question to you is this: did they say in the research, because I couldn't find it, did they say that it was 50%? You mentioned it was either sensitivity, 50% specificity, was it cross-reactivity?
No.
Together equal 50%.
No. 50% wrong. The test could give you a false positive, false negative, lumped together. The test could be wrong, either one way or the other. The specificities and sensitivities were like 95 and 99, but it had to do with sample size and all kinds of other stuff. But we don't know. We haven't standardized it enough, and there's not enough information about antibodies to standardize it. So to the concept, the idea of trying to make some type of passport or giving somebody the authority and tell them with authority that you won't be reinfected or that you're safe to go back out and work or be in society it's way too early. I think I'll be glad when we take an antibody conversation off the table and we talk just about virus, presence or absence of virus.
All right. So with that, let's start talking a bit about.
Hey, Doc, can you get the mic again? Drop the mic. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, hang on a second. Let me do this.
Boom.
Fix. Let me fix. And bye-bye. All right. So there you go. Let's quickly talk about some updates. Let's go over some of the numbers. Again, please tune into our daily podcast. It's called NoiseFilter. You can find it on all the podcast platforms. This is the daily podcast that Dr. Griggs and I do. It's 10 minutes long. It's very high yield information, and it mostly is focused on COVID-19, but from a social, economic, and environmental and racial justice perspective. Please be sure to use the chat function to talk with us, and we love to answer your questions, so please ask us COVID-19 related questions. So let's start looking at some of the global epi cases. We are up again. We were 5.7 million. We are at 5.8 million. We added 80,000 cases overnight, with 3,396 deaths overnight as well, bringing us to a total of 360,333 deaths. Very, very gruesome. With 2.3 people are dying per minute. You could definitively see that cases are definitely going up. There's no question about that. I really believe this is an upswing, and I think that this is going to continue to go up like this, especially, again, we are seeing a majority of cases really emerge out of South America right now. This is something that Dr. Griggs and I have been predicting now for a couple weeks. And of course, now we're starting to see that. We're going to start seeing cases in Africa as well fairly soon, as testing becomes available there as well. You can see mortality is globally going down. That's great news. I think this is largely due to the fact that I think that doctors are figuring out how to treat. With more testing on board, we're able to get people to the healthcare centers or hospitals quicker. They're able to get on oxygen sooner if they need it. And overall, they're just able to be treated. So I think that that's encouraging news. In terms of the U.S., we're at 1.7, rapidly approaching 1.8 million cases. You can see we added about 17,000 new cases overnight. Usually it's about 15,000. We added about 1,000 new deaths as well. That is a decrease, which is always a good thing. We're at about 103,125 deaths. So we're at one death every 2 minutes. And again, U.S. makes up 30% of global cases, even though we're 5% of the total population. And U.S. makes up 30% of all global deaths. Again, we're 5% of the total global population. You can see we're 103,125 deaths. And where are we on our scale? World War I was 116,000 deaths. So we are rapidly approaching that. Yesterday we talked about, in fact, I'm going to throw back to you here in a second, Dr. Griggs. Yesterday we talked about the mortalities or deaths exceeding 100,000, but this seems to be a lot of what's in the news today. And so I just wanted to get Dr. Griggs's perspective on the fact that we are looking at something where there's 100,000 deaths. We reported on it yesterday, but we're seeing it a lot in the news today. I'm just wondering, any thoughts about that or considerations?
Yeah, I want to, again, we talk about normalizing. That's 100,000 people and families and friend circles that have been affected by one virus. You made a point earlier on an earlier interview that we do, a daily interview we do, that 3 weeks ago, the number was at 50,000. So in 3 weeks, we have doubled the number of deaths. We have doubled the number of lives and families and communities that have been affected by one thing, this virus. And I hate to be the bearer of real news, but nothing has changed. At the very beginning of this, I would make it a point to say that we're pulling back the curtain on the scientific process. This is something that Dr. Dery and I do that we do every day. Whether there's a virus or not, I deal in community medicine, health equity, health literacy, public health, people, practice, and policy. Dr. Dery is on the field right here with me with focusing on infectious disease. And it's not normal. It's not a normal state of being where we have the number of deaths doubling every 5 days in some curves when we say we're plateauing, but we have 50,000 additional people that have died in the last 3 weeks, and we're counting. You've had spikes in some places. At one point at the beginning, after New York, New Orleans, we were a hot spot. and we practiced social distancing, and we wore a mask, and we were able to go inside and flatten the curve. That was a big thing, flatten the curve. Well, flattening the curve means doubling the number of deaths every 2 days on the upswing to leveling out, doubling the number of deaths every 5 days, and then we're getting comfortable. That's not a normal state of being. This is like war, which is why we're comparing it to war. So we shouldn't get comfortable. It's not a light switch. Like a light switch has been flipped, all of a sudden free back to what we were doing. What we know it won't be time soon. We're still fighting in a fight, and nothing's changed. Doc?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I want to just answer a question right now while somebody's still on board. Elizabeth asked me, can you catch and carry the virus, be asymptomatic, get well, and catch it again? Wondering about overall immunity, if that's possible. Thank you for asking that question. And I think that it's a great question, and one that we have answered. The real answer is that we don't quite know yet. The real issue here is I don't think reinfection is possible. I think that with the virus as we see it now, later it could mutate, it could generate some new antigens that will trigger new responses from an immune response or whatever. But I think at this point, I don't think catching it again is possible. So if you are asymptomatic, can you carry the virus and transmit it to other people? There's no question about it. You certainly can. But I don't think that you can catch it again. And there's some evidence. There's been something like, 5.7 million people, and we haven't really seen any evidence of reinfection. There's been some animal studies as well. So I think that we're moving into the realm of where I don't think you can really catch it, I think, again, from that perspective.
Just a small pushback, but not a real pushback. I don't want you thinking, Elizabeth, that you can go out because you've had it, you're good. We don't know. We don't even have the right test to let you know if you're good right now. And that's why we started the show talking about the antibody testing. It could be wrong up to 50% of the time. So I don't want you at any point thinking that I've caught this and I can't be reinfected and I'm good. We just don't know. We don't have the right test. We have a couple of tests they're specific for COVID-19. We know that they say they have IgM and IgG, which is what we look at, but we don't know how long it's sticking around. So right now, Elizabeth, what I want you to do, whether you had it or not, is to wear your mask and to wash your hands and keep your hands and your bugs to yourself. And we'll just have to wait and see. But Doc makes an excellent point. But again, we're still developing and trying. We can't rush to get back to normal.
Right. Absolutely. All right. Well,
I've got one question, Doc.
All right.
And it's another from Stephen. He said he's been tracking the curve via trackthecurve.com and places in Latin America that we were thinking of traveling to this year. Any insight on the capabilities of these countries, such as Brazil, Colombia, and the Caribbean? That is just, I'm just taking it and throwing it, just wait that way, throwing it all. You can actually, as a matter of fact, you can single screen it because this is your wheelhouse. Yeah, single screen it. This question is all you.
All right. And who was the person who asked it?
It's Stephen.
Stephen, thank you so much for the question. Let me answer. So if you're talking about traveling potentially this summer or this year to one of the countries in South America, I would definitively delay any of your travel plans for right now. We're going to show you a slide in just a minute of how bad it is in Brazil, and it's brutally bad. In fact, we're going to start seeing we are going to start seeing a significant amount of cases really emerge out of Brazil and South America. And so I think at this point, it's best to not travel to those places. And again, you're going to see a slide in a second. Brazil's having some of the worst days that they've ever had in the history of this pandemic. I think we've all had to cancel travel plans. In fact, I was supposed to be in Haiti right now, working at a hospital and clinic system in Haiti. And so I think at this point, the best thing to do is just kind of hold off on any of those travel plans and just kind of focus on being here and helping us kind of get the message out and the importance of staying home.
So, Doc, you mean the humidity won't, humidity, because it's extra humid down there, it's not going to help with the virus. Humidity, that's not the protective thing that you got to put the humidifier to do. No, Doc, no.
Yeah,
Miss.
hold on. We should put that as a graphic. Humidify it.
The reason we're laughing at that is because that's a big joke, folks. Humidity and heat do not affect the virus in any way that harms it. It will not protect you being in a humid environment. This virus spreads. It's spreading in South America now. It's spread in Africa. It's spread in Australia. It's spread in places that are south of the equator in the southern hemisphere. So what we want you to do is understand that the only thing that we know that works is washing your hands, of course, social distance, and you're going to get sick of us saying it, but stand away from each other, stay at home, and of course a mask, a cloth mask to help protect you from, protect me, keep me, there it is. Now that's a mic drop.
What do you think about that one? Huh?
Take that. I feel like Puffy. Take that. That's it.
Yeah, Graham is great. Thank you so much, Graham, for those. Those are awesome. Another quick question. How about this one? What about Portugal and Spain? So the same thing. Like I wouldn't go traveling. Like
the answer is no.
Yeah, like I wouldn't go traveling because
not the time.
Like first of all, it's not like you're going to be going and like the restaurants will be open. I mean, who knows what it's going to be like? But I would not travel at this point. I would be and first of all, you're going to wear a mask the whole time on a plane, and you're going to be traveling, and I don't know. I'm not 100% that on.
And then get quarantine. You have to plan out at least a month of your travel.
You're quarantine. Hold on.
Quarantine for 14 days when you arrive and 14 days when you get back.
Hold on. Here's the other thing. There are going to be travel bans from America for the rest of the world. The rest of the world will ban travel. We have the highest rates in the world. We have the highest mortality in the world. I guarantee you, wait for the rest of the countries to have travel bans from the U.S. So that's actually even a better answer.
So Zilvia, the other thing is that, and Doc is going to get to the slides in a minute, we account for 1/3 of the cases in the entire world.
Right.
We make up 5% of the population in the world, and we account for 1/3 of the number of cases and deaths in the entire world. So I don't know how welcome we would be in certain places.
Right.
Again, you'd have to plan a month, potentially, depending on the country, you'd have to plan a month of 14-day quarantine when you get there, then a month of 14-day quarantine when you come back. So if we just have to wait. It's not fun.
Right. And then there was a follow-up question that asked about somebody who's going to go and get tested in about an hour. How nervous should we be about the accuracy of COVID testing? Listen, Elizabeth, here's the issue. If it tests positive, and I'm assuming this is the PCR test or the nasal swab test or the saliva test. We're not talking antibodies. If it's positive, you're positive. If it's negative, we don't know. So to each of the tests has different. Each of the tests could be depending on the test. It could be 15%. Could give you false negative results. What's a false negative? That means that it says it's negative, but you're truly positive. Or it could be 30%. So it could be 1 out of 1, 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 2. Could be 1 out of 3 people. Or I'm sorry, it could be 1 out of 10, 2 out of 10, or 3 out of 10. We don't know that have these false negatives, but when they're positive, they are truly positive. So that's something that
if you're positive, you're positive,
right?
With those tests. Now this is Elizabeth. Elizabeth, I hope you're just going to get tested for not antibody, just you're being tested virus testing only. Let's focus on that, virus testing only, and that's what we're worried about right now.
Absolutely. All right. So let's get back to the slides, and with that, let's just kind of finish off what we initially were talking about. As I'm learning how to use this, sorry guys. Where is it? I don't know how to turn this off. Sorry, I don't know where it is. And Griggs is not here to help me. Graham, there we go. All right, good. Okay. So let's share screen and let's go. Okay, so as Dr. Griggs was saying, we do make up a third of the cases, but again, we did reach this milestone yesterday. We reported on it yesterday, but everybody's talking about it today. You could see that it was yesterday. It was even reached the day before. We only added 1,000 deaths overnight, but for some reason today it's in the news. We reported on it. What's today? Today's Thursday. We reported on it on Tuesday and on Wednesday. All right, as we talked about, the military deaths is very closely approaching the level of deaths of World War I. You can see here, this is the cases in the U.S., and you can see, I think that this is, definitely moving downward, so this is good. I still believe this is a little bit of the quiet before the storm. We definitely had an increase in mortality here. You can see that here, but you could definitely see that the cases are going down. Remember, the New York Times is about 1 day behind the Worldometer, so you're going to see this bar a little bit lower tomorrow, which is always good. In terms of testing, we looked at Iceland. They've been doing the best testing, or Bahrain at this point has been doing great testing as well. 297,000 tests, wow, at 175,000 per million people. So yeah, Bahrain, known for being the happiest, one of the happiest countries in the world. When you're looking at US, we're about 49,000 per million test. We ranked 34, so we're slowly moving up that list. We were in the 40s last week. We were in the low 30s this week, and now we're moving up to 34, so that's pretty good. This is our positivity rate. You can see our positivity rate is about 11%. So what's the positivity rate? You take your total positives here, 1.6 million, and you divide it by this number, which is 15 million. And what you find is that the amount of positivity is 11%. We want that to be less than 5%. If you get it, then less than 5%. That shows that we are testing enough people, and we're including all the asymptomatics and pre-symptomatics. So we still have a way to go. I remember when this number was closer to 20%, so we're doing well. In terms of the state of Louisiana, we're rapidly approaching 40,000 cases with almost 2,800 deaths. You can see overnight we added 305 cases with 19 new deaths. 3 of them were in Jefferson Parish, and there was nothing in Orleans Parish. We did add 22 cases, however. Here, this is the case rates in Louisiana, and I am beginning, I don't know if I'm making it up or if this line slowly looks like it's starting to go up. I mean, to me, it looks like it's starting to go up. And like we said before, after Memorial Day, I think that we're going to start seeing more and more of these cases. Good news is that this line is definitively, again, going down. This is mortality, so I think this has been a good thing. Looking at case rates, we rate, let's see, I think 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We're 9th in the world, 8,348 cases per million people. In terms of mortality, we are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 with 590 mortality rate. And then in terms of testing, we are 2, 4, 6, 7 in terms of testing. So this number I wish that we were higher with, and these other numbers in terms of mortality and case rates, we were higher on that list. We want to be lower on that list. Our infection rate for the state is still 1.04, so that means one person is transmitting it to one person and then 0.04 person after that. I know that sounds crazy, but active cases are slowly increasing, and you can see here where those hotspots along the state are. So you can see it's in the central part of the state, the north central, and then the northeast part of the state as well. Our positivity rate as a state is under 5%. That's good. You can see our ICU beds are available, and we only had 16% of our contacts that were traced at this point. We definitely need to do better. Our R0 here in Orleans Parish is itsy bitsy tiny going up. It's going up a little by little. I hope that this is error. Remember, this gray area is all error. So, and that error exceeds this line where the R0 is greater than 1. So we definitely don't want to see that happening at all. in terms of positive case rates, our total positive case rates, 7,000 out of 44,000 tests is 3.2. Remember, we want that under 5%. Our mortality rate here in Orleans Parish is 7.1. That's 505 deaths out of these known cases, 7,000 known cases. And then our population tested is 11.4% as well. So as always, our ventilators in use are plenty, our ICU beds in use are plenty, and so are the hospital beds as well. This is Brazil. Look at these numbers, just going up and up and up. In fact, Brazil may have had, they may have had their second worst day, right? I think this is their second worst day since the virus began. So anybody who's thinking about going to Brazil, I would not go. And look at that mortality rate, it's shooting up like a rocket, right? That's not the direction we want to be going in at all. So with that, I think, oh yeah, Dr. Griggs, I wanted to show you this last thing here. This is something I found out yesterday. It's called a COVID racial data tracker, right? And it says we've lost at least 21,000 Black lives to COVID-19. And you could see that Black people account for 13% of total population versus 25% of the deaths where race was known. This means Black people are dying at nearly a rate of 2 times the higher amount of their population share. So before we go over some of these stories, I wanted to pause and give Doc Griggs an opportunity to respond to any of the things that we talked about with respect to this.
So when that last slide, you're talking about that rate was relative to the African American population. You're saying relative 2 to 1, relative to other populations, cities like in St. Louis. The rate is as high as 7 to 1 when you compare African Americans to Caucasians, and nationwide when it comes to infections, the number is roughly, it averages out to about 3 to 1. Hospitalization and infection, and here in here in Louisiana rather, at the very beginning back in April, the number of people that passed away from COVID-19, the bodies in the morgue, 7 out of 10 were African American, and something that we are addressing. It's a very somber note, a different look on my face and a different feel. In light of what's going on, I can't ignore what's happening in the current climate. The witnessing what we witnessed with the officer with the foot on Mr. Floyd's neck, respect to his family and that community. It was just, it's tragic. There's no explanation for it, and it was wrong. We're already divided when we shouldn't be, when we're all trying to fight this virus, and to inflame the racial tensions in the country by taking someone's life is unacceptable, and it causes us to have conversations, needed conversations that should have taken place way before COVID, about inequities, health and otherwise, disparities, health and otherwise. But while we're having these conversations, we still need to remember that there's a virus out there looking to exploit the gap in knowledge, the gaps in behaviors. But I can honestly tell you it has depressed me since the very beginning with the shooting. I jog, I'm a jogger, that took place a few weeks ago. I jog in my neighborhood, and I should be okay to do so. I shouldn't have to worry about losing my life as I come out and try to help and inform what's happening with this virus. We're all, as a race, trying to fight this virus, and we shouldn't have to be concerned about losing our lives otherwise for the biases and ignorance of and malicious nature of anyone. So as we look at these death curves and we talk about the number of deaths in the African American community to COVID-19, we need to take into consideration all these other deaths that are going on that are actually being brought to light, because these things happen in communities with cameras all the time. And right now, everyone's at home and they can actually see these and feel the pain. So as we as we move forward today and the rest of the week, I want to really, I'm not going to take a moment of silence, but just quietly give honor to someone that loves for the road as we get back to this COVID-19 fight. Doc?
No, absolutely. I think these numbers are incredibly important for us to recognize, and I think that we would not be doing a service if we did not recognize the number of Black lives that are being lost, and honor those Black lives as well as all lives. But I mean, we're really here talking about a disproportionate amount of people who are being affected are Black lives, and there's a reason why they say Black Lives Matter, and this is an exact reason why we see Black Lives Matter. I just have to say, it's just another irony. You know, this morning we were talking on the radio about how we see, you know, protesters that are protesting all over the country with long guns, you know, at state capitals. And then you see protesters that are protesting the death of somebody in their community and the violence that comes out from the police, you know, shooting tear gas during and I think I was going to pull a Griggs and drop an F-bomb. Tear gas.
No.
Tear gas during a pandemic, forcing people to cough. How do you think that went? Think about when they're dropping tear gas. How do you think that went during a pandemic, right? When people are already trying to keep their distance. But, you know, it was hard not to at least for me, look at somebody like Colin Kaepernick, who kneels out of respect, and who's on one knee because he was told by a soldier that's the way that you respect the military, and that's how you respect individuals, especially those people who died. If you don't want to say stand for the national anthem, then you take a knee, because that's how you respect fallen soldiers and fallen comrades. And then you see, the U.S. completely freak out as a result of that. But then for some reason you have a cop who kneels on the neck of an unarmed Black man. The irony of it is disturbing. It's hard to swallow, especially in light of this week when we are still talking about Mr. Arbery from Atlanta, Georgia, and then of course I think it's Mr. Cooper, who was the bird watcher. He was a Harvard grad. He's on the board of the Audubon Society at New York City Central Park. And an individual who really showed how folks can use racism and play it in a manner that without question has been done for centuries. And many hundreds of thousands of people who have, imagine if the cops showed up and she was doing what she was doing. Like, think about at that instant, no looking at a phone, no nothing. What would they have done? If that guy was still there in New York City in Central Park, and she's like, "Oh my God, I'm fearing for my life," you know, I think it is important for us to recognize it. But let's see if we have any questions. Do you have any questions on your side?
I don't. I just have some waves. About yourself.
No. Let's go to some stories.
Yep.
All right. Here's what we got. You know, of course, no surprise, we are seeing the tally of coronavirus deaths has surpassed 100,000. I mean, we talked about it already. Do you have anything more to say about that, or?
No, we actually brought up that it was 100,000 yesterday. We just talked about it. These numbers are folks, we're still on the beginning of this roller coaster ride, so watch for the numbers to go up. Hopefully, we won't be talking like we did about another 50,000 deaths in the next 3 weeks. Hopefully, but we don't know because of Easter and Memorial Day and super spreader holidays.
So we got a question about Sweden. Do you want to take a crack at this one, or do you want me to?
Well, Sweden Sweden conducted it wasn't fully the opposite of social distancing and what we're doing here. There were restrictions. There were things that weren't enforced, and their numbers weren't what they thought they were. It's not quite working out like they thought it would. They wanted to try immunity rather than behavior modifications in masking. And from what I understand, Doc, you can have the numbers, but it's not working out the way that they thought it would. The economics still got hit. People still got sick. And here's the thing about herd immunity. It's not a quick process. It's not like, oh, we're going to just keep going in 3 months, everyone will be sick. It doesn't work. You can't rush science. Just like you can't rush a cake. No matter how bad you want that cake, you still have to wait while it's in the oven until it's done. Same thing with babies in any oven. Same thing. You can't rush it. Science is science and move at the pace that it moves. Doc?
Absolutely. I think Sweden is an unfortunate situation. A couple things about Sweden you have to understand is that people are inherently healthier in Sweden. They have a socialized system of medicine in which people have access to healthcare at any time. The other thing is that people live in more remote areas. Sweden is a large country with less people in it. So it's not like living in these dense cities like you see living in Italy or in Spain or in France or New York City or New Orleans. So it's more spread out. The other thing too is in Italy, young people live with their parents for long periods of time. In Sweden, that's not culturally relevant. People leave the house. And so, and then furthermore, Sweden's got some of the worst death rates. So Sweden, I think it's fair to say, was a failed experiment. And think about this. You know, we refer to it as a failed experiment. People in Sweden never gave their consent to be experimented like that. So lastly, you have a very, very smart group of people in Sweden. They socially isolated themselves. For the people who did not want to get sick, they were looking at the news, they saw what other people were doing, and they managed to socially isolate themselves. But I do appreciate that question, and it's one that we get often, and I think it's a fair question. I really do.
Great question.
Moving on, let me just kind of, as we start wrapping up here, let's see what we got next here. Is scientists are revising their timelines of how the virus spread. I mean, yeah. I mean, you know, I think that's a story that's always going to be in the news. And essentially what they're looking at there is essentially determining, you know, we're going to start seeing that the virus actually was likely here for a long time, longer than we thought it was, here being in the U.S. It came from Europe. It did not come from China. And so it'll be interesting to see kind of what the final considerations are from that perspective as well. So the next story here is California is the fourth state to reach 100,000 no cases. Yes, it is. So, you know, we are still seeing, even though the number of cases are going down, we are seeing pockets of growth in various places. Of course, no shock, DC will begin to loosen virus restrictions on Friday. We are seeing that all over the country. Here's some interesting news. The House holds its first a partly remote vote. So that is some good news in that we're starting to see some use of technology, especially in government, especially when it should be needed. One of the things that you're seeing a lot of too is a lot of irony in that you're seeing a lot of politicians saying that they don't want voting by mail. They would rather people go and line up to vote. But these are all folks that were that had voted by mail themselves, so it was good for them to do it. But then two, the idea of actually getting into a room with people when it's not necessary does not need to happen. So I appreciate that the House is starting to vote remotely. There's no reason why they should have never done it. It's like precedent. I understand. But the fact that we are in 2020, we're facing a global pandemic, I think that the old rules are forever gone and we need to stick with what's new right now. And I think that that's good news. Let's see. And if you guys have any questions, please let us know. Otherwise, we're going to be wrapping up our show here pretty quickly. Next here, I was going to see what you thought about this one, Doc Griggs. I think you're a basketball fan, aren't you? Kobe Bryant Hall of Fame induction is expected to be postponed to 2021. It was a horrible and tragic and obviously a very untimely death, helicopter death. And they were in this is something I actually know about. They were in a Sikorsky 76, which is a type of helicopter, and that's the one I used to fly in when I was a flight doctor. I did that for about 10 years. And what they didn't have on the, and you're going to hear more about this because his wife is going to very, very likely sue, or the estate is going to very likely sue. They didn't have a what's called a TWARS guidance. And when you're flying, have you ever flown before, or have you ever done any of that before?
I did only when went through a transplant surgery rotation. Nothing on that
Got it.
order. We would just go around Louisiana, harvest organs.
Got it. So when you're flying, especially if you're in inclement weather, it's crazy to say because our feet are on the ground all the time. But when you're flying, it's very easy to get disoriented, and in fact, you don't know where the ground is, right? And I know that sounds crazy, but that's why you see that globe or that. Have you ever seen that round object in a cockpit? And so that's meant to that's supposed to represent where the ground is, right? Well, they have another version of that, very high-tech version of that. It's called a TWARS, and I forget what it stands for, but it's meant to identify where the ground is, and they didn't have it. So when they went through that, low cloud cover, the pilot got disoriented, and this is why it's super important to fly with 2 engines and to fly with 2 pilots, and that's what a Sikorsky gives you: is two engines, 2 pilots, and that didn't happen. And of course, Kobe Bryant passed away, along with several other people, but certainly his daughter, who I'm not a sports fan, but I had heard of her and was aware of her just because I knew that she was young, and she was 13 or 14, and she was really slated to be a very talented basketball player. Lastly here, workers were removed from a Gulf of Mexico platform testing positive for the virus. That's not good news at all, because that just means we know that what these platforms are like, and we just recognize that there's a potential problem with them, and because that's a lot of men, mostly men, a lot of people that are gathered in one tight place. And when you start removing folks that are positive there, that's very likely that there's going to be more positives. Here's a point of fact for you. Do you know how these guys get out to their platforms?
On a helicopter.
Sikorsky 76. It's called an Airbus. Yeah. It was that helicopter was invented to take people from New Orleans or from southern Louisiana to the platforms out on the Gulf, and they were so good that they moved over to the hospital world to do what's called helicopter HEMS, helicopter EMS. I did see the notice. Thank you. Somebody sent a thing here. In fact, 102.3 WHIV, which we are going to be broadcasting very soon. Doc Griggs, we are going to be on the world famous. I think I could say world famous WHIV. So Doc Griggs and I are returning to WHIV. We had a show Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Called the Get Check, Get Fit, Get Moving show with Doc Griggs and Dr. Dery. But this show will be replayed at 11 a.m. So thank you for folks that are listening on WHIV. It says someone messaged you and asked about Portugal and Spain, and we did answer it. Thank you so much for alerting that. And then lastly, before we wrap up, Zilphia asks, she says, I'm glad you mentioned the difference in how countries live. I keep seeing people compare us to Japan and other Asian countries, which I think is comparing an apple with oranges. Can you really make those types of comparisons with so many different variables? I'm assuming that with flying, I'm not sure. Do you want to take a crack at that, or I'm assuming mask wearing?
That's what I'm thinking she's talking about, unless she's talking about governance.
No, I think probably mask wearing.
Not
yeah. Yeah, I think that the Asian countries that have had significant less mortality than us did so because of their very, very universally accepted mask wearing practices. And I think that there's no question that the only way for us to get out of the conundrum that we're in without having to wait for a vaccine is very aggressive mask wearing with continued hand washing and continued stay at home. Otherwise, I'm saying this. Right? Wear a face.
Mic drop.
Social distancing and washing hands from the face. I already got a text from Graham who said we should not overuse the mic drop. So We get it once or twice per show, and that's it. Hang on, Dr. Griggs, this is one of my DJs, so probably I'm going to let you just finish off the show right quick, okay?
Yeah, folks, so that was it. For those of you that are new, welcome. And for those of you that tune in regularly, thank you. We try to filter through the noise and touch on all of our topics. Today, we did take on a somber tone because of what's happening in our community, and that's what we do. We do this every day. You can catch us here at 4 p.m. live, and you can catch us every morning. Our podcast at 10 a.m. on NoiseFilter. NoiseFilter podcast. If you go to NoiseFilterShow.com, you can find us, and you can download us from any of your podcast sites, including Spotify and iTunes. With that, I'd like to say get checked, get fit, get moving. I thank you for all your questions. I thank you all for being here. We're going to get through this. We're doing really, really well. I'm not going to drop a mic because the old guy has dropped it too many times.
Oh, dude.
And he's back.
Come on. It was good. It was good, dude. I saw you. I can't wait. I can't wait to see. I can't wait to roll the tape. I can't wait to roll the tape to see your eyes when you saw the mic drop.
Yeah, that was dope. That was dope.
Listen to please download our show. It's called NoiseFilter. This is our podcast right here. Please check it out. We appreciate all of the love. Thank you for all the people that wrote all these great comments. And I got to do this. NoiseFilter podcast. Peace out.